The rain poured relentlessly as I stood outside my parents' grand estate, my hands trembling with a mix of anger and heartbreak. I had knocked twice already, but no one had answered. The golden chandelier visible through the window illuminated the lavishly decorated foyer, a stark contrast to the cold rejection I had just experienced. The door finally creaked open, revealing my mother's piercing gaze. Her expression was unreadable, but the moment she stepped aside, my father appeared behind her, his arms crossed, lips curled in disgust. "You actually came back?" His voice dripped with disappointment. I swallowed hard. "Dad, We don't have anything to talk about, Elijah," he snapped. "You made your choice when you refused to take over the family business. And look at you now, broke, struggling, and still expecting handouts?" I clenched my jaw. I never asked for a handout. My older brother Nathan stepped into view, adjusting his expensive Rolex. "Then why are you here?" he smirked. "Did your little startup fail already?" Their words stung, but I had learned long ago that their love was conditional, based on wealth, power, and status. I had walked away from all of it years ago, refusing to become a puppet in my father's empire. My decision had cost me everything: my family, my inheritance, my place in their world. I took a deep breath. "I came to tell you that I'm getting married." Silence. Then my mother scoffed. "Married? To whom? Some nobody?" Her words burned, but I refused to let them see my pain. "Her name is Ava. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me." Nathan snorted. "Let me guess, she's broke too?" I held my ground. "She's smart, kind, and doesn't care about money. Unlike all of you." That was the last straw. My father shook his head and pointed at the door. "Get out, Elijah, and don't come back." I had expected this, yet it still cut deep. Without another word, I turned and walked away, the cold wind biting at my skin. What they didn't know, what I had never told them, was that I wasn't broke at all. In fact, I was worth more than they could ever imagine. I was a billionaire, and they had just disowned the richest man they would ever know. The city lights blurred through the rain-splattered car window as I sat in the back seat, my mind replaying every cruel word my family had thrown at me. I should have been numb to it by now, but somehow it still hurt. Not because I needed their approval, but because deep down, a part of me had always wished they'd change. Ava reached for my hand, her touch grounding me. "Are you okay?" Her voice was soft, full of concern. I turned to face her, my heart swelling with gratitude. She had been my anchor through everything. While my family had abandoned me, she had stood beside me, never once caring about my wealth, my past, or the empire I had secretly built. "I'm fine," I said, though my voice betrayed the lie. She didn't push, just squeezed my hand tighter. That was the thing about Ava. She always knew when to let me be and when to pull me back. As the car pulled up to our penthouse, I glanced at the towering skyline of the city. My city. They thought I had nothing, but the truth was, I owned more than they could fathom. I had started from nothing, scraping by with nothing but a vision and relentless determination. I had built my own empire, one that didn't rely on my father's fortune or my family's name. Tech, real estate, investments. I had turned every failure into an opportunity, and now I was wealthier than my father and Nathan combined. And yet none of it had mattered to them, because in their eyes I had still failed. Ava and I stepped inside the penthouse, the warmth of our home a stark contrast to the coldness I had just left behind. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city below, while modern art pieces lined the walls. It was everything I had ever wanted, not just the wealth, but the freedom. She set her coat aside and turned to me, studying my face. "You don't have to prove anything to them, Elijah." I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. "I know." But as much as I wanted to believe that, something inside me whispered otherwise. Because tonight had proven one thing: no matter how much I built, no matter how far I came, they would never see me as enough. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to show them exactly who they had turned their backs on. The following week, I buried myself in work, using my billion-dollar empire as both a distraction and a weapon. If my family had made one mistake, it was underestimating me. They believed I was nothing without them, but they had no idea just how powerful I had become. I sat in my private office, the floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city skyline. My assistant, Lucas, walked in, placing a thick folder on my desk. The acquisition is finalized. Whitmore Enterprises is officially under your control. I leaned back in my chair, tapping my fingers against the polished wood. Whitmore Enterprises, my father's pride, my family's legacy. They had built it over decades, but in their greed and arrogance, they had driven it into the ground, and now it belonged to me. Good, I said, flipping through the papers. Make sure the transition is smooth. I don't want anyone losing their jobs because of their incompetence. Lucas nodded. And about your brother, Nathan reached out. He doesn't know it's you yet, but he's looking for investors to save what's left of his shares. I let out a low chuckle. The irony was almost poetic. The same brother who had laughed in my face, calling me a failure, was now scrambling for help, completely unaware that I held all the cards. Set up a meeting, I said, a slow smirk forming, but don't tell him who he's meeting. Lucas hesitated, as if sensing the storm I was about to unleash. Are you sure? This could get personal. I met his gaze, my voice steady. It was personal the moment they threw me away. That night, as I sat with Ava in our penthouse, I finally told her everything. About Whitmore Enterprises, about Nathan's desperation, about the meeting I had arranged. She listened quietly, her eyes searching mine. And what do you plan to do? I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. I don't know yet. She reached for my hand, her touch gentle but firm. Just promise me one thing. Don't let revenge consume you. I looked into her eyes, the only place where I had ever found true acceptance. I promise, I said. But deep down, I wasn't sure if I could keep it, because tomorrow, for the first time in years, I would come face to face with my brother, and this time, I held all the power. The next afternoon, I arrived at the upscale restaurant where the meeting was scheduled. I had chosen this place deliberately, one of the most expensive spots in the city, a place Nathan wouldn't have dared to step into if he knew who was footing the bill. I took a seat at the private booth in the back, adjusting my cufflinks as I waited. The waiter poured a glass of my favorite whiskey, the rich aroma filling the air. Minutes later, Nathan walked in. He looked different, thinner, more stressed, his designer suit no longer carrying the same aura of confidence. He didn't recognize me at first, his eyes scanning the restaurant for the mysterious investor. When his gaze finally landed on me, his entire body stiffened. Confusion flickered across his face, quickly followed by disbelief. You! His voice was barely above a whisper. I took a slow sip of my drink before setting the glass down. Surprised? Nathan slid into the seat across from me, his expression a mixture of shock and discomfort. What the hell is this? Why are you here? I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. Because I own Whitmore Enterprises now. His jaw clenched. That's impossible. I smirked, pulling out the finalized acquisition documents and sliding them across the table. He grabbed them with shaky hands, his eyes scanning each line. The color drained from his face as the reality set in. This can't be happening, he muttered. But it is, I said coolly. And now, you need me. Nathan's eyes darkened. So what? You set this up to humiliate me? To rub it in my face? I exhaled, suddenly feeling the weight of the moment. This wasn't just about revenge. This was years of pain, of betrayal, of being cast aside like I was nothing. I could destroy him right now. I could leave him in the same position they had left me in. Powerless and alone. But then I remembered Ava's words. Don't let revenge consume you. I picked up my glass, swirling the liquid before speaking. I didn't do this to humiliate you, Nathan. I did this because I worked for it. I built something for myself while you and the rest of the family wasted everything. Nathan swallowed hard. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes that I never expected. Regret. I messed up, he admitted, his voice quieter now. We all did. I didn't let him off the hook that easily. No, Nathan, you didn't just mess up. You threw me away. All of you did. Silence stretched between us. He had no argument, no excuse. After a long pause, he finally looked up at me. "Is there any way I can fix this?" I sighed, leaning back in my seat. Maybe there was. Maybe, just maybe, this story wasn't over yet. Nathan sat across from me, his once arrogant demeanor reduced to quiet desperation. I had spent years waiting for this moment, for him to realize what it felt like to be on the other side. And yet, now that it was here, I didn't feel the satisfaction I had imagined. I could destroy him. I had the power to strip away everything he held dear, just as he and the rest of my family had done to me. But something held me back. "Tell me, Nathan," I said, my voice even. "Why should I help you?" He hesitated. I don't know." He let out a shaky breath, raking a hand through his hair. "You have every reason to let me crash and burn. Then why are you asking for my help?" His gaze dropped to the table. "Because I have nothing left." The weight of his words sank in. The mighty Nathan Whitmore, who once sneered at my struggles, was now just a broken man grasping for survival. I took another sip of my whiskey, watching him squirm under the weight of his own downfall. A part of me wanted to relish it, to let him feel every ounce of pain he had once made me endure. But then I thought about Ava, about the life I had built. Was revenge really what I wanted? I set my glass down. "Here's the deal, Nathan. I won't bail you out. I won't make your problems disappear, but I will give you a choice." His head snapped up, eyes filled with cautious hope. "What choice?" "You can either wallow in your mistakes, or you can prove that you're capable of change." His brows furrowed. "What does that mean?" I leaned forward. "You're broke, right?" He swallowed, nodding hesitantly. "Good. Then you'll understand what it means to start from nothing." I pulled out a business card and slid it toward him. "I own more than just Whitmore Enterprises now. I have other ventures, real businesses that don't just rely on family wealth. If you're serious about fixing your life, I'll give you a job." Nathan's expression twisted in confusion. "A job?" "Yes, a real job. Not a cushy executive seat you don't deserve. You'll start at the bottom. No special treatment, no shortcuts." His face paled. "You want me to work for you?" I smirked. "Isn't that what you wanted all along? To see me beneath you?" Nathan exhaled, staring at the card like it was a lifeline he wasn't sure he deserved. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted. "Then don't." I shrugged. "Walk out of here and figure it out on your own. But if you want a second chance, this is the only offer you're getting." He hesitated, gripping the card tightly in his fist. For the first time in his life, he was out of options. I stood up, adjusting my suit. "Think about it." I tossed a few $100 bills on the table to cover the tab. "If I were you, I wouldn't take too long." As I walked away, I didn't look back. For the first time in years, I was truly free. Days passed, and I didn't hear from Nathan. I wasn't surprised. Pride was a difficult thing to swallow, and for someone like him, accepting help from the very person he had once discarded was probably unbearable. But then one evening, as I was leaving my office, I saw him standing outside, clutching the business card I had given him. He looked different, tired, humbled, lost. "I'll do it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I studied him for a long moment. "You sure?" He nodded. "I have nowhere else to go." A part of me still didn't trust him. I wasn't offering him a lifeline out of kindness. I was giving him a test. If he took this chance and wasted it, that was on him. I let him inside, where I introduced him to his new boss, a mid-level manager who wouldn't tolerate incompetence. Nathan wasn't going to get any special treatment. "You start tomorrow," I told him. "If you mess this up, don't come back." He swallowed hard but nodded. "I won't." A year later, I didn't expect Nathan to last a week, but he did. And then he lasted a month, and then 6 months. To my surprise, he didn't just survive. He worked harder than I had ever seen him work in his life. He had been forced to face reality. Without money to shield him, he had to learn humility, discipline, and perseverance. He had to rely on himself, not our family name. One evening, he came to see me in my office, dressed in a simple but well-fitted suit. He no longer looked like the arrogant, entitled brother I once knew. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady. "For what?" "For not letting me rot." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because I wanted to see if you could actually change." His lips curled into a faint smile. Did I? I exhaled, giving him a long, measured look. Yes, I admitted. He had learned his lesson. The brother who had once shunned me for being broke had finally learned the value of hard work, the weight of his own actions, and the price of arrogance. As for me, I had already moved on. My wealth had never defined me. But watching the people who once disowned me now seek my guidance only confirmed one thing. Money didn't make a person worthy. Character did. And in the end, that was something no amount of money could buy.